And here it is, the final six races of the 2024 season. We are back, baby. And what a race to get back into. Controversy, Max, Lando, and
Ah, yeah, Ferrari, baby.
yeah, them too. All right, let's get into it. In case you missed it, there was a race this weekend,
Oh, wait.
and and neither of the title protagonists won it. In fact, it was. We might as well just get this out of the way quickly. Ammar, go on.
I
How
don't
happy are
care.
you right
I
now?
don't I don't care about who was at the apex first or second or third. I do not care. All of y'all, you're missing the point. This was a Ferrari 1-2, man. That's the only storyline that matters. Well, I see everybody all over the internet getting all crazy about, oh my God, this is not fair. This is blah 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 blah. Ferrari 1-2, Monaco, Italy. Everything, man. I have no words, man. What a brilliant race by Charles, man. Come on. What are you talking about there? Like, this is amazing. I want Max and Lando to fight the whole year, the remainder of the year. Uh,
Amazing.
that's what I
All
want.
I'm gonna
That's
say, all I'm
beautiful.
gonna say is this guy over here said that if somebody was gonna steal everyone's thunder, it was gonna be Leclerc. But we, like everybody else on the internet, are gonna get into Max and Lando because that's what we're here for. All right, so bit of scene setting. Lando at the end of every single stint, this entire season, it seems like, speeds up. And on the hard tyres, he was on it. So he comes at Max Verstappen on fresher tyres right at the end of the race with about, what, 5, 6 laps to go. We're counting down. And here we go. Austria take two. Has Lando learned anything? We're going to find out. And we did find out. What did he learn? Nothing. Because exactly the same thing happened again. Lando ends up getting past Max Verstappen after trying an outside of turn 12 move, runs out of space, goes onto the marbles, ends up ahead, ends up with a 5 second penalty, which he then can't make up and has to give the position or loses the position at the checkered flag. Ammar, thoughts on the move? We're playing it right now. Here it is. Tell me what you think. Who was at fault? Did Lando deserve a penalty?
I don't think he deserved a penalty. But I also think that in the end, this was just good racing. I mean, I know we're looking at the outcome of the penalty itself, but if you just put that aside for a second, which I know is difficult to do, there was just two guys going hard at it. I mean, this kind of reminds me a little bit of Baku as well, where Leclerc and Oscar were going at it, although it didn't quite end up in that way. But the battle was kind of that way, right? Because you're right. McLaren came on alive on the hard compound, and I think Max and Red Bull were struggling. And I just generally think they were both a couple steps behind Ferrari on this weekend. So I kind of expected that race to kind of come down to whoever is going to be able to be on the podium with the two Ferrari drivers. So I enjoyed it. I think we're again.
He loves saying that.
Yes, I enjoyed it. I totally enjoyed that. But I also enjoyed that because this is racing. I mean, look, this is what we want ultimately, and it's going to be a little bit controversial. So I get it. I still have faith and confidence in Lando being able to give Max a chase. Or I recognize that the point differential has widened a little bit in terms of what he needs to do. But I think if we just pause, and sort of yeah, pause on the outcomes of it, right, and what happened there. I thought that was brilliant. That was exciting racing that was happening. I thought it was hard racing. Was it over the line? I think they were both over the line. So in my opinion, and I know you're going to talk about the rules and all that, I just don't think there was a.
Why who do you think was over the line? You thought both of them were over the line.
I don't. I mean, I wouldn't say in the strictest sense of that. I think, look, it's one thing is very clear. Max has this unique quality of adapting to the rules and using it the best he can, and really using. I think one of the underrated things is using the track characteristics to best defend his position, right? And I think again. I go back to Baku because that was recent, right? But we applauded Oscar for placing his car correctly at turn one, sort of doing that. And I think Max has now shown us a masterclass in being able to defend particularly against his championship rival. Do I think that it's a little bit over the line? Yeah, probably. But then again, I think we've talked about how difficult it is to legislate things to where they just fall in that exact window where maybe the majority of us will agree
Yeah,
that it's fine, right? So you're always going to have it be a little bit
yeah.
over or under. So I think Lando is sort of underutilizing the rule set, right? If you will. And I think Max is sort of probably pushing the boundaries a little bit. So in the end, for me as a neutral fan, eh,
Mm, I don't know. Look, we did a video not that long ago. It was straight after Austria, in fact, which I think is pertinent, where I postulated that perhaps Max Verstappen is unraceable, and I have to alter that a little bit because I think your Oscar comparison is actually very apt. If if that situation, the situation that happened on Sunday, had happened in Baku, would we have had the same result? I think not, because there was a wall on the outside in Baku, right? Charles Leclerc couldn't keep his foot in and try and wing it round the outside because he would have ended up in the wall. And by the same token, Oscar to go down the inside, he even said it. He thought, like, I've left this so late, I'm going to end up in the wall. He obviously didn't really think that, otherwise, he wouldn't have pulled off that move. But if he had done what Max did on Sunday, he would have ended up in the wall. So perhaps actually, like, and this is the conclusion coming at the beginning rather than at the end, but perhaps the answer to all of this is to have track limits much more robust than they are at the moment, the way that they have them in Austria. I thought that little rumble strip with the gravel strip on the outside of it just makes it much more clear. You don't have this argument. Go on, you're shaking your head.
I don't know. I don't like this, right? I mean, you cannot micromanage each of these situations, right? And again,
Exactly, but that is what we're doing.
but the reason we're doing that is there were penalties applied. And I think the better thing to do is to not have inconsistent refereeing, which is something I've been really against since Miami, by the way. And this again brings Oscar and Science from Miami back into play. This is kind of the same issue. The issue here isn't you cannot keep modifying the track to where, okay, you're going to account for everything because
Why, that's how we had it before. This
I
is how
know,
these situations were mitigated in the past, because
right.
if you went wide, you ended up in the gravel or in the
And you're
wall.
also
And in Baku, that's absolutely what would have
Shez,
happened.
but Shez, you're also taking away, you're just putting boundaries
What are
on
you
how
taking
things
away?
can
No,
happen.
I think you're
Yeah.
I think you're actually making it better because look, okay, we're going to come to this
Not
because I
better
think
because
I think it's important that we make a point about that we get to the bottom of this, right? And the fact that you're arguing with me about it is actually very useful. I love it. I love that we're having this disagreement. But just to the rules very quickly, because I think we might as well just run through whether we think it was the right outcome or not. But if we flash up what the guidelines are, so these are guidelines, they're not hard and fast rules that the stewards have to follow. They're rules of thumb, right? And remember, there's always a driver steward on there. This weekend it was Derek Warwick. You will remember his name from a certain race in 2021. Anyway, so the rules are divided into guidelines for overtaking on the inside and guidelines for overtaking on the outside. And essentially, the crux of both of them is that if you can get, as the overtaking car, if you can get to the apex first, the exit is kind of all yours. You can kind of do whatever you want as long as you get to the apex first, right? And Max seems to use that whether he's attacking or defending, right? So his as soon as he knows that there's somebody coming up behind him in a situation where he wants to keep the position, right? Where there's a small enough difference between his car and his attacker's car, right? What I mean by that is if you're in Zandvoort and the McLaren's coming at you with a 60 kilometer per hour speed differential, he's not going to fight you that hard because what's the point? But in this situation where he thinks he can keep the position, when the driver behind is coming at him, he will do everything he can to get to the apex first because then he knows whatever he does at the exit, he'll be all right. But the bit about the thing about this that irks me is that there's a line right at the bottom of item 2 which says, wait for it, the car being overtaken must be capable of making the corner while remaining within the limits of the track. And if you look at what Max just
Yeah,
did,
that's what I said.
he didn't stay in the track. So surely
Yeah.
that means that he
So
didn't give Lando enough space on the outside, and he didn't actually have the right to keep that position anyway. And I think the stewards in their deliberation on this and um, the reasoning for why they gave that penalty, the 5 second penalty and not a 10 second penalty, was that they said, well, because Verstappen was also off the track, that played a part in why Lando was so far off the track, and therefore they gave a 5 second penalty and not a 10 second penalty. But that to me means, well, there shouldn't have been a penalty at all, either way.
yeah, I completely agree with you. Again, I don't I think the rules are what they are, right? And I really believe that Formula One and the FIA have decided to adjudicate races this way because it purely is a marketing mechanism. It gets all of us to talk about it at the end. They are not interested in having consistent refereeing. Otherwise, they would have fixed this. And honestly, the more egregious one
Mm.
was the one that George Russell got. Like I have no earthly idea what that was all about. And
Again, it was all about the apex.
but
It
this
was
this
all
is the
about the
problem.
apex.
But this is the problem. And just I would just say like let's put all the technicalities aside. This ruins a race weekend. It
Ah,
just I mean we can
see?
talk about every no no I'm with you. Here's what I'm saying. That's why I agreed with you on the front end saying this would have been better not to have a penalty because we were having such a great back and forth, and you knew that something was going to happen, and it was always going to be over the line. Whether there was the defense from Max that was going to be over the line, or whether Lando was going to overtake, he was going to have to do something extraordinary, and we could have seen this coming. I actually think it's a miracle that they didn't tangle up together in some way. I was fully expecting that, right, to some extent, but I just think that we are at a point where it's not about rules, it's the way they apply it and the inconsistency with which they apply it is just goddamn, just stressful to watch. And it just ruins the experience. So
I just don't know why they have these rules. Well, I do know why they have these rules. They had these rules because of everything that happened. They came in straight after 2021. They happened because there were so many instances where it was like, was Max over the line? Was Max not over the line? Was Lewis sticking his nose in where it shouldn't have been? Was he not sticking his nose in where it shouldn't have been? And because everybody was in uproar saying we need proper rules, they brought out these rules. Be careful what you wish for, folks, because this is what we've now got. We've got a whole bunch of dumb rules that mean that if you get to the apex first, you can do what the heck you want on the outside. It doesn't matter. So that is why, for me, if you can't over-regulate this because every single move is different. Every driver is different. Every corner is different. If you're going to make this work, the only way to make it work is make the physical limits of the track different. If you have instances where like just picture this, right? You have the same battle. You have the same Lando catching up to Max. You have the same story right up until the point that they have that incident, right? Lando, Max, Lando tries to go around the outside. Max misses the apex, right? Or he doesn't miss the apex and goes in too hot into that corner. He either has to back out of the corner completely, in which case Lando goes past, or he hits the wall. One of those two things was going to happen, right? So you'd let nature decide, or they back out and they carry on having a fight for a few more laps. So we get that battle for longer, not a controversy at the end of it. Right, I'm all
or
for
you could just
controversy.
let
I
them
don't
go.
mind that. I don't mind having like it lets us have an argument, right? Because not it's not always right or wrong. But what I don't like is that every time we walk into a battle like this, and we knew this was going to happen because it's always the same. Because Max is excellent
It
at
was
reading how this works, at doing what he needs to do on a track that allows him to do it, because as I say, he wouldn't have done this in Baku, I don't think. But in a track that allows him to do it, on a corner that allows him to do it, he is second to none. You knew that this was what was going to happen.
yes, well,
So why let it happen in the first place?
this is what
Create
I'm
a physical barrier that
yeah.
stops that from happening.
Or just better yet, look at this in front and just let it go. Like there's a thing called non-penalty either way. You don't have to penalize any drivers. Like
Yeah, 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 yeah,
let
yeah.
it work
But
itself out on the track. And look, Lando had to go through something
I'm with you on
extreme to be
that.
able to overcome.
100%.
I don't believe that he really gained an advantage by going that far off the track and coming back. Like that's not it. Even if there was, it was pretty marginal, and they were going at it tooth and nail. It was going to take something like that. And I think I would like to just walk away from something like that, giving both drivers praise and saying, "Hey man, duke it out on the track and it's done." Now, the only thing you can do, which I would be in favor of, is look at the outcome. If one of them crashes into the other, causes it sort of an adverse outcome, then I don't mind the human element coming of this into playing and saying that. But this is why you have
But
human.
then what do you okay. And in that situation, the fix is, like you say, to have consistent stewarding. And how do you have consistent stewarding?
Paying someone to be a consistent steward.
Correct. And have the same freaking stewards at
It's
every race. The
it's
same
not.
drivers turn up, the same team principals turn up, the same race director turns up. Why can't we just have the same stewards turn up every single race?
That's what I'm telling you. I mean, I think that the
Just makes no sense.
sport is kind of controversy, right? And it is the best kind for them. Again, we're going to talk about this up until Mexico comes, and then we're going to anticipate what happens in Mexico too, right? And so, therefore, I think that's it. And I'm 100%
Oh,
with
I'm here for it. I'm
it's
here for it, but it's
yeah,
gonna be
I'm here for it, but then I think we're now always going to have this, right? Like let's just say at some point now, maybe Lando's now going to be at the point where it's like, bleep it, I'm going to lose the championship anyway. I'm going to send it in because what's the worst that'll happen? We'll crash
but
and I'll lose,
yeah, but
right?
this is the genius of Max Verstappen in wheel-to-wheel racing, right? And I have to say, I don't like it. This is not how I want to watch Formula One races decided by a technicality because someone is racing
But
amorally,
that's
but
why you need
but
the
it's fine because it's what the rules say. So it's genius, but I hate it.
But Shez,
I'm just gonna put it.
this has to be resolved on the track, right? Because look, even if you were to repeal this in some way,
But
there would
yeah,
be
but dude, that's the
independent
problem. It
consequences.
won't be.
No,
How many instances
even
in
if it
2021 were not resolved on track, but resolved in the stewards room? That's
doesn't
why
do
they
this,
brought in these silly rules.
right? But we're still here, right? We're still here. So it's never going, there's no amount of regulation that'll help. You have to have, I think the best thing that you can have is somebody that's consistent. But again, you have that problem too with biases and all those things. And I just don't like the idea of that, right? And so I don't know how the sport fixes it because they don't seem to want to fix it. They don't look at this as an issue. Those of us that care about how this means in terms of drivers' legacies and championship care about it way more than the average fan who just looks at it this way. And then I really just so to me, Shaz, there should not be a penalty unless there is a direct sort of. It's like you can insult anyone up until the point where you don't physically insult them, kind of thing, right? Unless you cause damage, you sort of let it go. You are the referees for that particular race. You say both drivers went off track. Boom, it's done. It doesn't mean
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you. That is an option, and it should have been the one that was taken. My thing about the legacy and casual fans watching. So look, as a fan of Formula One in general, the best series of wheel to wheel racing we have had this season was Baku. I'm not going to lie, man, because there was tension there. There was a big pass for the lead. There was constant threat, but there was respect, and there was a physical barrier, which I keep coming back to, that stopped any of the
right, but
shenanigans that we've just seen. That for me was perfect. What we saw in Austin on Sunday was not what we saw in Austria. Also, was just I don't want to have to be wincing every time I watch the screen. I want to see the best drivers driving at their best.
that's why
That's not what I'm seeing, I don't think.
you have 24 racetracks. They're all going to be different. And this is my point. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
disagree
I don't.
with you
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah, yeah. But I
But
think that for me is a robust way of allowing you to have the close racing that you
I,
want, but the drivers have to use their skill rather than bludgeoning the other person off the track, which is what is happening at the moment.
look, this has to be resolved on track. There's one driver who Max won't do that to, and we all know who that is, right? And so that's kind of
Okay,
I was
let
secretly rooting for both of them. I'm hoping for more of this. In fact, I'm hoping
yeah, me
that they
too.
both
Me too.
drive
Me
each
too.
other off
Me
track
me me
and
too.
not get seriously hurt. But like, I'm hoping for 5 DNFs from both of them moving forward. Like, that would be my
Me
ideal scenario.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm not
Go at
completely
it. Go
averse.
fight even more.
I'm not completely averse to that, actually. I think it will be a great outcome. I do want to talk about the elephant in the room and segue quite nicely onto what you have just spoken about because look, I'm going to start this by reiterating that I still think it would be an
That could be
absolute
an answer.
travesty if Lando Norris wins the championship this season. And I think on the basis of what we saw in Austin, he's even further away from that happening now than he was before. He has been psychologically bludgeoned by Max Verstappen. The way he allowed himself to be overtaken at turn one was nonsense. But that's not the elephant in the room that I want to talk about. What I want to talk about is why is it that in these situations it's always the same driver? It's always Max. Nobody else quite understands how to play these rules the way Max Verstappen does. And I may hate it, but nobody else seems to be able to do it. But there's only one driver that seems to be able to fight back. I want to cast our minds back to Austria 2019, where the same nonsense happened, right? And Max Verstappen essentially, on a charge, pushed Charles Leclerc off the track at turn four to take the lead of the race and was not penalised. Charles Leclerc then turned around and said, well, if that's what the rules say, well, then he's going to get a taste of his own medicine. And this is what happened in Silverstone that year. Play the tape. Exactly the same, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's why I said this
Right?
could be resolved on track. Yeah.
Yeah. Resolve it on track. But he's the only one that seems to be able to that seems to be able to do it. And I think, look, when you look at the three drivers now that have properly gone up against Max Verstappen in race and championship situations, right? You've had Lewis in 2021 who sort of let it go, and then didn't let it go and had to become un-Lewis like to not let it go, right? All of that clean driving that we got used to uh, was a little bit tarnished. Then we had Charles, who we're going to talk about, and now we've got Lando. So Charles, I think what ended up happening was, he had been racing Max Verstappen for such a long time that he knows the game. He knows what Max is going to do. And whether it's karts or Formula One, because essentially Max only has only done karts and a season of half a season of F3 and then gone into Formula One. Whether it's karts or Formula One, Charles knows how to race him, which is why he was able to do what he did in Silverstone 2019. Um,
Even
and
in
if it happens to him once, he learns and goes, right, fine. I'm not allowed to do that, or I'm allowed to do that. Fine, that's what I'm going to do. Lando doesn't seem to have that, or at least he doesn't seem to know what to do. Like the same situation crops up again and again, and he tries different things, but they're all the wrong thing. Do you
well,
know what I mean? It's
yeah.
either he goes off track, doesn't give the place back. Although actually, I didn't think that was a bad idea here. I thought he was going to make up the 5 seconds and therefore be safe, but he didn't. Um, or he tries to do what Max does and move in the braking zone, but he does it badly, so that doesn't work. Or he tries to dive bomb Max and misses the apex and misses the corner, so does that badly. Or he just lets Max overtake him and win that psychological war. So I feel like he doesn't learn, whereas sorry, Lewis and Charles, one eventually and one straight away, understood the game and were able to take it to him. That is another reason why I think Lando just this isn't his championship, unfortunately.
Well, I would like to take this moment to praise the greatness of Leclerc, right? He is the only guy in this sort of top three echelon, I would put, that does not have a championship, which really has very little to do with his own shortcomings, whatever those might be. And in reality, I think there's a level of respect too. He has Max's respect going back to their history, but I think that he has that fire too, right? The aggression that's needed. And I just don't think that's Lando's character build up. It's not necessarily, I mean, look, I don't. He's smart. He's not oblivious to any of this, right? If we are seeing this, he's seeing this. They're seeing it as a team. Clearly, he has a certain style, and whether it's adapting that style or not being able to react, like whatever it is, that's just his DNA, right? And I cannot criticize someone for being that. You're right. He may not be championship material, at least not in the way that this is happening.
Perfect
Um,
number two driver.
yeah, but again, I mean, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. I think this was a season where they arrived at it too early, and whatever. So it is what it is, but it's not happening there. But I think that this is why Leclerc has Max's respect. Like you can see that genuinely. Whereas Lando and Max might be great friends, I think there's that level
Yeah,
of respect because
I agree.
Charles
Max knows he's got him in his pocket, like
correct.
in a way that he doesn't with Charles, right?
And Charles can be aggressive. He can fight fire with fire, right? And I think that that's just the reality of it. So I think if this were Max and Charles going at it, that would have been a completely different race. We've been robbed of that for different reasons. Of course, I want Charles to win just easily, let it be boring, as he said, right now. But I think that's just it. And I think a lot of this boils down to driver characteristic too, right? So that's just not Lando's game. Frankly, I don't even think that would have been Oscar's game, to be honest. But so I think this is interesting.
No, I don't know. I do wonder what Oscar would have been like in that situation. But look, just to finish off your point about Charles Leclerc, look, I think like genuinely, I am starting to think he has been the best driver this season. Like he's not always had the car to win, but when he's had it, he has won. And in fact, you could argue in Monza, he didn't have the car to win, and he still won it with a tire management masterclass. He's quick over one lap, possibly the quickest. He's aggressive but fair in his racing, wheel to wheel. He's starting to make good decisions on track, and the team under Fred Vasseur and the strategy team they have at Ferrari are now not letting him down either.
But I think
I think this season has been his most complete season, and that completeness has made him possibly the best driver on the grid this season overall.
I would agree. I
Come
would
fight me.
just look at this. I mean, the perfect example of that is in his quotes post race, right? He knew that Max and Lando were going to go at it, and he was opportunistic and he positioned his car in just the right way at turn one. And sure, it did take a little bit of, but you knew that he was gonna be ahead. Ferrari's race was just between the two Ferrari drivers, if anything, right? They were sooner or later they were going to pass both the other cars because their long run pace was really good, even though it didn't quite show that much in the sprint race. But it was just there, and I think that how painful this is for me to admit now, because had we had a better run after Monaco, right, just a slightly better run, Leclerc would have been firmly in the mix.
It's
And I
not, it's mate,
agree.
it's not over. I don't think it's over. I still think if Lando and Max go at it the way they have done, it's going to end up in a double DNF and perhaps
I'm
even more than
anticipating
one.
one or two of
And
those soon. Yeah.
if that happens, I think Chuck's right in there, man.
Oh man,
And
don't give me hope now.
I've said it on air before, and I'm saying it again now. I think Charles is the dark horse for the title, definitely, but potentially for second. I think he's thinking game on right now. I think he's thinking I've got second in the bag if I want it.
And then look at I think that this bodes really well for 2025, right? Because at some point we'll talk about what that means to have Lewis Hamilton by his side, but he's quickly forming himself up as the leader of Ferrari, right? Whatever that might look like next year is going to be a different discussion. But I just think so. I mean, I think in the end, I fully expect Lando now to at some point he's going to reach that point where he's just going to have to send it in, man, because that's the only way to make it happen. And if I were him, I would do it the same way because that's the only way to resolve this. I'm not advocating to take out another car or anything like that, but if that's the aggression that Max brings to the table, he has to bring it back. And I don't know what that'll result in. Will he has to, in my mind, Shez, he has to win Max's respect. That's what this is about.
But
It's not
I think
about
it's too late for that. I think it's
yeah, no,
way too
no.
late for that.
We're talking about it in the championship context, right? But in terms of being able to be in each other's head, like he needs to
Ah,
show Max that he can give it back, right? And that's where I think you start getting a little bit of.
I think
I
that
also think,
I
by
think
the way,
that ship has sailed. I don't think Lando's got it in him.
I want to say though, this was a poor job by McLaren again. He asked the team, Lando asked the team whether he should give the position. They should have got on it and got that.
I think the outcome, I was thinking about this, and the outcome would have been the same. He was what, point 0.9 behind Max after his penalty was applied. I think if he hadn't given that place, if he had given that place back, I think at the end of the race, he probably would have ended up
But the
about a
race
second
car
off as
part.
well.
But he could have done it in a strategic way that really kind of gets him back because they did have the pace. I mean, he would have gotten it.
I don't think so. I think that
Max
was,
was
I
locking
think,
up too, so you don't
but
know.
he wasn't locking up though. That was the thing. Martin Brundle said he
Lando
was
was.
locking up. I didn't see him lock up ever.
He
But
did. He got out
did
of it.
he? Did he? I didn't. I barely saw it because he cadenced his way out of it. But I think probably what would have happened is that Max would have worn out Lando's tires chasing him after lap. I think that probably would have ended up the same way. Okay, we're going to do a quick dull bit about upgrades and teams because we
Go for
have to talk about it because
it, guys. Yeah.
F1 is a team sport. Um, but McLaren and Red Bull both turned up with big fat upgrades, and Ferrari, with apparently no changes, um,
Yeah, but
did
I don't.
played a blinder. What's that all about?
Yeah, but I don't look at it that way, no. I mean, they brought those upgrades at Singapore, correct? Right? And they were really brought with the idea of, I mean, they might as well would have brought it to Austin, right? Like that. I don't know. That's like
So,
a.
so
I think the better question is
okay.
whether the upgrades on the other car work
I
on it.
listen. I need to bring this up, right? Because this heads back to our mini DRS chat, which I still think is illegal and cheating. But that's a whole other conversation. But essentially, Fred Vasseur has said that, not in so many words, but he's saying that they've changed the front wing. So the shape is still the same, but the materials are slightly different to make the front wing on the Ferrari a bit more aero elastic. Okay, the rules say it's that the wing has to be immobile with respect to its main plane, right? You can't flex them. So if you had a wing that didn't flex, and now you turn up with a wing that does flex, and that's the only change, surely that's cheating.
No, it isn't.
Surely that is illegal.
A hater. Don't be a hater. Don't do that.
Not being a hater, I'm just
Yes,
looking
you
at the
are.
rules as they're
Yes, you
written,
are. It
and I'm
doesn't.
going, whether it passes the load test or not, the load test is not there to a certain legality. The legality of it is the intent. Did you make your wing flex for performance gains? And if you're telling me that you had a wing that didn't flex, now you've got exactly the same wing visually, but it does flex, that's illegal.
Okay, well then go apply to the other teams too. Fine, fair enough. Like, I mean, that's fine. And
Just,
this is
just putting it out there.
this
But the
is the
mini
other
DRS was definitely not legal, and it was at no point legal.
right. It was,
Anyway,
but McLaren did get penalized. If it was not legal, then why weren't they penalized?
correct. They
Don't even.
should have been penalized. They
So if
absolutely
you're
should have
not
been
going to do
penalized.
that, if you're not going to do that, and this front wing thing was going on for pretty much the whole season. I mean, we did a video in which you called out the Mercedes front wing at one of the first videos of the season, right? Where we did that. But
Yeah, no, no, but that was within the rules. The
no, no,
shape of
but
the
I
wing at
get
that
it.
point was within the rules. This is different, right? There is a rule that says you cannot flex your wing for performance gains, and they are flexing their wing for performance gains. They are actively telling you
Yes,
that that's what they're doing.
because I remember Fred saying that if this he clarified it with the FI and they said that okay, it
Yeah,
passes. So it
yeah,
passes. Oh, okay. It is what it
yeah.
is.
But that for me is why it's illegal. But anyway, right. I think on that bombshell, not bombshell, just continue shell. It's time to call it a day. Ammar, as usual, this was awesome. You guys, if you liked, please like. If you haven't subscribed, please, what the heck are you doing? Subscribe to our channel. Please leave us a comment. We read all of them and we respond to as many as we possibly can.